We're very excited. Myself and Chuck Schulte have on a very special guest, Mike Michalowicz, or Mike M, or I also heard Mike, Motorcycle Mike. I don't know what it is behind that, so I might not ask, or we might, but we're very excited to have you on here today to talk about one of your many books, Profit First. Besides, I know, Mike, that you are a well-known author. I know of at least 4, including Profit First, Surge, one of my favorite titles, The Toilet Paper Entrepreneur, and The Pumpkin Plan. So I think that those are pretty cool. Most of our listeners that we kind of talked to and questioned and answers that are looking for are really geared towards your Profit First book, and really have some valuable information to share there. You have it in the background there. I'm a knucklehead and left my copy at home. I apologize. But in any respect, Mike, why don't you tell us briefly about yourself and maybe how you came to develop the method that you did with Profit First, or became an author, and give us some history here before we go into some other stuff.
You got it, Frank. So I am a full-time author. I have strategically positioned all my books over my shoulder for anyone not seeing the video.
Awesome.
With my brand new book positioned right there, Clockwork. You can see I have it positioned.
I saw that on Amazon. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's coming out this summer. But I became an author for entrepreneurs because I too am an entrepreneur. Prior to becoming an author, for 20 years, I was in the IT space. First in specifically setting up computer systems for small businesses. I was able to sell that company. My second business was in computer crime investigation. I also sold that company to a Fortune 500. But I think the interesting parts of my story is not the experience in building and selling a couple companies. I think the interesting part is after I sold my second business, I was overcome with both arrogance and ignorance. I thought I was a genius. I was God's gift to entrepreneurship. I thought I had the Midas touch. Anything I touch turns to gold. And I started another business as an angel investor using the money I generated through the sale of my 2 companies to invest in 10 different startups, putting 10,000 here, 50,000 there, and so forth. I lost the Mike motorbike title. Then I became Mike Viper Mike, because I bought a Viper, a Land Rover, BMW, all these different cars on the same day. After I sold my businesses, and it was just this arrogance of believing that success was the collection of stuff, and that it was so easily replicatable just by doing what I'd done. Well, it took me only 2 years. I lost everything. I lost my millionaire status, and after 2 years. I'll never forget the day. It was February 14th, 2008. I came home to tell my family that I lost everything. And we did lose our house. We did lose our cars, our possessions. We lost everything because of me. It became the ultimate wake-up call. I'll never forget. I actually write about this in my book, that my daughter, she was 9 years old at the time. I had to tell her to her face that she could no longer go horseback riding. Her passion, the only thing she loved to do, because I couldn't afford the $10 a session for the group session. And she went running out of her room crying. And I remember her running away, Frank, just saying, like, that's what I want to do. I don't know your darkest moment, Chuck and Frank, but I know you've been there. And the solution feels like running away. That's why she was doing. That's what I wanted to do, until I realized she wasn't running away. She was running to her bedroom to get her piggy bank. And she came back to me and held it up and said, "Daddy, I'll support our family." And it was just devastating that my 9-year-old daughter felt so compelled that she was the one who had to be the salvation for our family, because I had destroyed us financially. And that became a turning point for me. One thing about turning points, it wasn't like I woke up the next morning and said, "I got this now. I'm going to fix all my ways." I became depressed. I went through depression for 2 years, a drinker, an insomniac, and really struggled with depression. And I don't share that in any sense of pride, but I share that because it's important. The most afflicted community with depression is us. Everyone watching this broadcast, you are an entrepreneur, and we go through these highs of highs, but we go through the deepest valleys of lows, and it afflicts us. So my thing is, if you're experiencing depression, I've been there to a degree, and I get it. You're not alone. That's why you're not alone. but that became a seedling for me to turn things around. And that actually sparked me to become an author. Every book I've written, the ones I have there positioned behind me, I'm even writing a new book yet again. And everything that I'm working on is actually, I'm reflecting back upon all the struggles, all the challenges I've had in my entrepreneurial endeavors and trying to fix it for myself. As I find those problems and find the solution, at least what I believe to be a solution, I'm then inviting other entrepreneurs to explore it. My readers, people who've read my books, and I test on their businesses. I own a new business yet again today. I have a president for the company, but I'm actively involved in directing it. I tested on that. So it's kind of a guinea pig for my new concepts. And then, and once the community tests it out and we narrow down to, we got a solution here, that's when I write a book about it. So the Clockwork, the new book, it took me 6 years to write because I go through this experimental process with it. But I think with that book, I found the solution to time, meaning how to manage our time to get the most of our business while working the least. And Profit First, my most recent published book, was about being profitable, because so many businesses, sadly, are not profitable. They're sort of surviving check by check. And I think I found a solution that would work for many people, and that's what that book's about.
Wow. You probably can't tell from this camera position, and I'm not sure how it looks on the other end or what have you, or how Chuck felt about, but when I read and or heard and hear you verbally saying about that story with the piggy bank, the hair stands up on my arm, and I actually had tears in my eyes. I mean, because I think it's very relatable for myself, as well as probably for Chuck, as well as probably a lot of the next level physical therapy owners that are involved in this group. It's amazing. Like we always say that we're probably the least likely people to help ourselves because we're so involved with helping other people. And as entrepreneurs and as business owners and as let alone being involved in medical and medicine, I think we're even the worst at it because, again, we're so busy about being attentive to other people's needs that we neglect our own. We probably neglect our family, neglect ourselves, and in turn, que sera, sera, just like what happened to you, and here it is. And
it's unbelievable. One of my relatives is a physical therapist, John, and same thing. He puts so much into caring for other people, neglects to care for himself, and it can manifest in different ways. In his case, it affected him physically, which is the great irony. He's a physical therapist, and he came down with serious physical ailments. But I think for most of us, the first manifestation is money. And we put so much into caring for our customers. We put so much into caring for our employees. We make sure that we maintain our space and it's spotless and clean. We make sure the customers are addressed. Everything is cared for. All the financial aspects are. And then when it comes to paying ourselves, let alone a profit, it never happens. We sacrifice ourselves over and over again. And then one day it's going to break. One day we can't sustain it anymore financially, and we're done. So with Profit First, what I try to teach people is you can't put yourself last. You must put yourself first. And I have reasons why you need to put yourself first. But financially, once you secure yourself, you are in a much stronger position than ever before to care for others.
That's a very valuable point. And I think a lot of times we do forget that. And I know I've read, obviously I read some other people as well, as I'm sure you do. And I know that I read a very similar almost statement, and like Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, dwells upon that really you should pay yourself first, because, once you're paying everyone else and all the other things, all that money's coming off that between taxes and all these other different things. The best thing you can do and the best, value you can give is, again, to pay yourself first, just like you're doing, which seems to be a good lead in to Profit First.
Yeah.
Is that it's a complete reverse engineering of normal train of thought, where most people, generate sales, pay expenses, and then in turn, now, I got $50 left. Well, that kind of sucks, but okay, I guess better than zero.
You're right.
Now, let's take your methodology of Profit First and take sales now minus and pay yourself profit, and then figure out at the end how whatever your expenses are, and you can take it from here, how you can make do to make those expenses covered. Otherwise, you got to figure out a way to control your expenses.
Yeah. So when I started developing the Profit First system, I, in part, was inspired by a memory I had with my accountant. I remember going to my accountant many, many years ago, and I had this IT business I was sharing earlier that was not profitable. We had achieved over $1 million in revenue, which sounds so substantial, and I was in the worst financial position I've ever been in. I now consider the more revenue we have, the more stress we put on our business, because revenue represents responsibility. Every dollar we make, we have an obligation to deliver a service or product for that. So the more revenue you have, the more obligation you have. The offset is profit. That's the stress reliever. And I remember I went to my accountant, and for the first time after many years of running my business, he had an income statement. He circled the very bottom at the end of the year. A number was 15,000. And he said, "Hey, I want to congratulate you, Mike. After all these years, you finally have posted your first profit. You have $15,000. I want to congratulate you." And I felt the butterflies. The hair on my arm stood up. I was like, "Oh my God, finally, this feels so good." And I looked at him. I said, "Keith, I got to ask you, where's the money?" And he starts to laugh, like an accountant when he starts snorting. He's like, he goes, that's called an accounting profit, Mike. You don't have that money for real. You've already spent that. This is an accrual-based or accounting-based accounting for profit, not a cash basis. There's nothing left. And I was like, oh my God, I need profit as I define it. And so what I'm going to teach now is the system for driving profit in your business as defined by most entrepreneurs. Cash at the end of the year or at the end of the quarter for you. This is not your salary. This is not anything but a bonus check that gets written out to you as a thank you for owning your business. That's what I consider profit, actual cold hard cash. So here's a system. I started to look at my behavior, and I found this is true for most entrepreneurs. Most of us don't read an income statement or a balance sheet or a cash flow statement, maybe some of them, but surely most of us don't know how to tie it in together. I honestly still do not know how to read a cash flow statement properly. We don't know what necessarily our KPIs are and our tiebacks to those KPIs. Those are our key performance indicators. We don't know the critical metrics, the OCR, which is the operating cash ratio, and other components for our business. What we do know is we find our phone. I don't know where I put mine now, but we have our phone and we log into our bank accounts and see what our bank balance is. And based upon if we have money, we know we can spend some. And if we don't, we need to sell, right away. I call that bank balance accounting, where we just rely on what we see in our bank account. Well, instead of trying to follow the traditional accounting mechanisms of reading all the statements and determining what we have available to do what, which is what traditional accounting teaches us to do, I decided we need to design a system that works with our natural behavior. So the first kind of golden lesson here is don't change who you are. That's the most difficult way to see improvement. Instead, build a system that channels who you already are. Meaning if you don't need to change at all, you just keep doing what you're doing, but now it's channeled to the outcome you want, the likelihood of success grows astronomically. So what Profit First is a system that uses your bank accounts and logging into the bank. The second thing is I also discovered that formula, Frank, that you were referring to, sales minus expenses equals profit, while it's prolific, meaning everyone is aware of it, it's written in every book, it's taught constantly, is a total lie, meaning it does not drive profit. I'm not saying it's illogical. I'm not saying it's not factual. I'm saying it's a lie in the fact that most businesses aren't profitable. I read a study. It was in part involved the SBA. I actually don't know the source anymore, but the study, as far as my recollection is, was that 83% of small businesses globally, and a small business as defined by the SBA is a company that does $25 million in annual revenue or less. That's absolutely my company. I suspect it's everyone watching, or most people watching right now, have less than $25 million in annual revenue. Well, in our globe, there's 180 million of us, a pretty good sized country of entrepreneurs that own small business. Of those 180 million, 83% of those businesses are surviving check by check, which means check by check survival is if we don't get in substantial deposits this week, we're not going to be able to cover payroll next week or rent, let alone pay ourselves. Mm-hmm. Most businesses are simply collecting money to pay expenses and are never paying the owner adequately a salary and never taking a profit. Well, I believe the reason that's true is because the formula of sales minus expenses equals profit tells us to do that. You have to understand from human behavior, when something comes first, it gets prioritized. And when something comes last, it gets delayed or even totally ignored. Think about your health, right? We're talking about physical therapists here. You see a lot of health issues.
Sure.
Could you imagine someone that gets an injury in a car accident and they go to the doctor and the doctor says, you got to address this immediately. You're going to need to rehabilitate your muscles and stuff. You know, would the patient come out of the doctor's office crippled and say, starting today, I declare I'm going to put my health last? Of course not. They say starting immediately, I'm going to put my health first. You see, when we use the word first, it's a priority. When we say something comes last, it means, it can wait. I don't care. I don't need to do it now. Here's what the formula of profit teaches us. Sales minus expenses equals profit tells us that profit doesn't matter. Not now. It can wait. So most businesses don't take a profit. They definitely don't bake it into everyday's transactions. Most businesses don't even look at it once a week or once a month. Sometimes in the quarter, most businesses wait till the end of the year to say, is there anything left over? Profit is considered a leftover. That's the absurdity. So what I teach is we flip the formula. Sales minus profit equals expenses. And here's how you use it in execution. Starting today, everyone watching this program, everyone, I argue, needs to take profit immediately. And how you do it is very simply by taking a predetermined percentage of your income. If $100 comes in today from a client, you take a predetermined percentage. I don't know if it's 5 or 10 or 15. We'll work on the process to build it up, but maybe start low. But say it's 10%. $100 comes in, you take 10%. We take $10, we put it into a profit account. We hide it away from ourselves. And the remainder, 90, is what we run our business off of. But by taking your profit first, you're assuring permanent profitability because you're taking it first. So that's the basis of the profit first system. Now,
it makes a ton of sense in many different ways. And a couple of things that bounce out to me really quickly here is how many owners, Chuck, have we had that have written in our group or written in about this particular topic that number one, they have not paid themselves. I think one person even said in our group, they haven't paid themselves in over 2 years and 7 months.
2 years.
Which is incredible. Thankfully, I think they have a spouse that is doing well in what they do and keeping them afloat. But I think this is the story for majority of people. We've talked about it in our group where we say, you want to have a minimum of 3 to 4 months worth of reserve to have some form of a stable business. Anything more than that, you're probably exceeding the norm. And I think you just clarified that with, I didn't know, 83% is an astounding number of people that, of that large millions of number that are entrepreneurs that are basically going paycheck to paycheck to survive. It's just incredible. And I think that all these points that you make is really, really, really valid. I mean, if we know, and I saw about the Parkinson's law, I thought that ties in well too about, hey, if I know I have 2 weeks and $2,000 to get a project done, I'm going to take 2 weeks and I'm going to spend $2,000, right? But if you gave that same project, like you said, and you only gave 1 week and 1,000, you will figure out a way to make that work, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's either that or the alternative to completely fail, right?
Yeah. So Parkinson's law is a powerful part of the profit first system. The part about not knowing that so many businesses are struggling is because so many entrepreneurs carry shame around this. I don't go around bragging, my business is struggling, I can barely get by. There's an outside expectation too, which is kind of weird. The day you open your physical therapy practice, all of your friends see you as an entrepreneur, like you're a millionaire. They all think you're a millionaire the day you start your business.
Only Chuck, right, Chuck?
Right?
Yeah, sure.
But the reality, of course, is the polar opposite. So there's this misperception, and as entrepreneurs, we feel that we have to carry this. So there's shame that we're not achieving what the outside world's expecting of us. So many of us kind of
and there's this weird thing that whether you're a new business or an old business or whether you have a lot of money or you don't have much money, your company will still spend every single dime it has unless you put it off to the side.
Right. And that's Parkinson's law.
I see that time and time.
So Parkinson, just as a kind of a history primer, he was a theorist from the 1950s. His name was Northcote Parkinson, and he's studying human behavior. And he did this in a an essay he did. What he noticed was that as government was expanding, he was studying government, that as they hired more people, they found more work, and they would hire more people and they find more work for those people. So it was the number of people that were dictating the amount of work the government had. The study continued on to observe this anomaly happen kind of everywhere. So maybe it's not an anomaly, but this phenomenon is a better choice of words, that as a resource expands its availability, our consumption expands. You know, I like chocolate chip cookies. And so the rule at our house is don't have chocolate chip cookies in the house because I can't resist it. The thing is, if you put one chocolate chip cookie in front of me, I'll eat the one chocolate chip cookie. If you put 15 cookies in front of me, I'll eat more than one, right? The greater the supply, the greater the consumption. And
Yes.
the reality is this happens with money. I bet you for most people watching now, as your business has grown in income, you work so hard for it, it's so weird and uncanny how our expenses increase at the exact same rate as our income. Why is that? Parkinson's law. We see more money available. Our subconscious kicks in and says, oh, I can buy that piece of equipment. I can get that employee. And we keep on expanding, hoping that one day profit will happen, because the old formula where profit comes last tells us that profit needs to wait anyway. So what we're going to do is turn Parkinson's law on itself. What we're going to do is take that percentage of profit and hide it away. And the flip side of Parkinson's law is, he says when there's more supply, we consume more, but when there's less supply, we consume less, and we become innovative. So the less money we have $2,000 in 2 weeks, we spend in 2 weeks, we spend $2,000. We have $1,000 in 1 week. Not only do we spend $1,000, frugality, but we also become innovative. We find ways to get things done faster. Oh, maybe my uncle can help out and do the cleaning of the office real quick for me for free. You know, we find alternative ways to get the same results. And that's where magic happens. So when we take our profit first, we bring about innovative thinking to our business, and we bring about frugality. And it's the combination of innovative thinking and frugality that forces businesses, brings about sustained profitability and fast growth.
Smart, man. Very, very smart. And you know, it's unfortunate that for myself and probably many people that are listening to this broadcast is that it took us so long to notice that and not see that directly in front of you. You know, I had a guy that was pretty wealthy. He was one of my first patients way back when, and told me, he said, Frank, you want to be wealthy? He said, I don't mean rich. I mean, you want to be wealthy one day? He said, take 25 to 30% of every dollar that you earn, put it in an account, and never touch it before you do anything else. And I was like, yeah. Like that's going to happen. I owe about 80 grand in a loan I just took. I barely have any patients in my door, et cetera, et cetera. But man, was that guy stinking right? I mean, exactly right.
Spot on,
Man. Spot on.
Yeah. And so books are dedicated to this concept, but typically to personal finance. There's a book called The Richest Man in Babylon. Take a predetermined percentage, yourself. There's a book called Think and Grow Rich. Use the envelope system. Categorize money before you spend it. But it's about personal finance. I was not blown away, but I was kind of surprised that in the business world, they had no similar system. And that's why I developed Profit First. It uses this concept of pay yourself first, but instead of paying yourself, you're now paying the business, AKA profit first. You're also setting up multiple envelopes. What I mean by this is, we talked about earlier, you log into your phone to see what your balance is and then make determinations based upon that balance. Most businesses have one account. It's their checking account. All the deposits go in there and they spend all their bills from it. The thing is, if you only have one checking account, you see what the balance is, you think all that money is available for expenses. But the real fact is the money needs to be used for multiple purposes. A portion for profit, a portion to pay you the salary you deserve as the owner, a portion to cover the other people, expenses. What about taxes? When the tax bill comes, shouldn't your business be taking care of the taxes, not you scrambling to pay on your own? The answer is yes, that's financial freedom. So we're going to set up different envelopes, a profit envelope, an owner's compensation envelope, a tax envelope, an operating expense envelope. And here's what happens. You now log into your bank account. The money gets allocated based upon predetermined percentages to each account. Before you spend a dime, you know its intended purpose. And that channels you to make that stuff a continuous reality.
We're going to jump into some questions here shortly. And that reminds me of something I know Chuck did a small video on that I think was brilliant, is that you're right. Almost everybody probably does have traditionally one account, maybe two, maybe a checking and a savings perhaps, which probably not many savings accounts anymore. But he put out a short little video on the fact of like people should have, one account for expenses, one account maybe for profit, so to speak, and then one account also like a reserve account. So kind of different terminology as to what you're doing and stuff like that, but at least on the right path of explaining that people should have separate accounts. And the one is almost like I forgot I had that account. Oh yeah, I got some money in there. That's an account,
Take it out of play.
That's a nice ring to it, right, Chuck?
Yeah, take it out of play.
Yep.
Take it out of play. And it's funny when you hide money from yourself, and that's part of the profit first system too. Transfer money to a second bank or use hidden accounts at your existing bank. It's unbelievable how you when it's out of sight, it's out of mind. You don't even think about the money and you run off what you have. And then one day you access that account and you're like, I have how much money? It's surprising how it grows and how much you didn't need it in the first place.
Excellent. That's fantastic and very, very useful and smart information, Mike. And we're so appreciative, myself and Chuck and the group here, the other founders and all the members of Next Level Physical Therapy are grateful that you're sharing this with us once again. Do you mind if we roll into some questions?
Yeah,
now?
let's do it. Let's do it.
It's valuable and stuff. So, Chuck, we can bounce around here. I'm going to look through some of the ones that I have here, but we'll just start off here with number one, if that's okay, Mike. First one just being is, where do most people go wrong in their general approach to managing money, whether it's business or personal, in your opinion?
Yeah. So in my experience, most people think that profit is an eventuality. We spend a lot of time speaking about this, but they think that profit is important. It's just not important now. And that's the grand mistake. They think that profit will happen down the road at trigger points. Once my business is doing $200,000 in revenue, that's when we'll start pulling a profit. And then when it doesn't happen, they say, oh, maybe the number's really 500,000 or $1 million. So they stay in this growth mentality, but they ignore profit. And what that means is they're amplifying the stress on the business. So it becomes more and more stressful. There's more and more requirements they have to deliver on because they're growing revenue, but they never counterbalance it with profit. So they think that profit's important, just not now. That's a mistake. And then how do you fix it? You bake profit into every single transaction in your business. The other part on the personal side is we have to realize that as entrepreneurs of small business, we are what I call conjoined twins with our business. So many people say, my business is my child. I'm the parent, it's a child. That's not true. We're conjoined twins. As the business goes, so do we go. If the business is struggling, we're struggling. If we have a bad day at work, we're going to have a bad day at home. The way to separate us out is a surgical process, right? We share hearts, lungs, and soul. So we have to be very careful in achieving business profit because so will go our personal profit. If our business isn't profitable, we'll never make money ourselves. So we start with our business, make that healthy, and then this translates also to our personal lives. And we can follow the exact same system in our personal lives and be sustainable there just as well as our business.
That's really smart. And if there's a single person that listens to this broadcast that can't resonate with what you just said, well, then call me crazy because yeah, that sounded really, as Chuck just said, spot on, crazy. Yeah. A question that somebody came in with here was, do you get a lot of pushback from either accountants or the banks and stuff like that about this system? And if so, how do you handle that?
Yeah. I used to, like 4 or 5 years ago, I actually once got invited to speak at a major accounting conference. And they said, hey, we heard you're a new author of Profit First. We want to talk about profitability. I told them the system and they de-invited me. The first time it's ever happened.
Wow.
Because I basically say that the GAP system, which foundationally says sales minus expense equals profit, is flawed. And they said, you can't come to our event. And I get it, but I also feel sorry that they weren't willing to look at a perspective because traditional accounting is not serving most small businesses. Most small businesses are dying because we don't understand its principle. I think today it's changed. We now are aware of over 75,000 businesses doing the Profit First system. There's hundreds and hundreds of accountants and bookkeepers that have become certified in this process, and there's thousands and thousands more that are aware of it. If you go to your accountant or bookkeeper and say, I'm going to implement Profit First, will they be taken aback? In most cases, they still are, but there's enough information out there that if they do a little bit of research, they'll see how established it is. But the first gut reaction from most accountants and bookkeepers will still be resistance. But you have to understand, they went to school for this. They spent 4 to 8 years studying that profit is the last thing. It's the bottom line after all. Yeah. And so to unwind 8 years of training with one comment saying, I'm going to start taking my profit first and not allow profit to come last anymore is going to be shocking to them. You have to stick with it. And if they challenge you, just say, listen, trust me on this. I'm going to try this and let's see what the results are. And if they're still not willing to do it, then maybe it's time to find a new accountant or bookkeeper.
Gotcha. Okay. I think another big thing was, what are the biggest errors? So with probably initiating, so I want to jump into the profit first system. What are the big downfalls or big pitfalls that I may endure?
Yeah, the first one is actually a full jump in. So the full profit first system, I've outlined in the book, the percentages of the optimal business and all the different accounts. The analogy I use today is that if you've never run for a marathon and you decide, I want to get physically fit and my goal is to run a marathon one day, I'll tell you what not to do on your first day of preparing for this. Don't run a marathon, right? That's the answer. And so the biggest failure point is I've seen businesses say, oh, I like the concept. I'm going to try it out. I'm doing full throttle. And it's such an abrupt shift to their business. It crushes the business. And then they say, oh, the profit first system doesn't work. And they abandon it for life. That's the biggest mistake. The second mistake is to wait until you're quote unquote ready. I've literally had people come to me, understandably so, saying, listen, I have debt. I want to get rid of my debt first. So I can't do this until I'm debt free. Well, I don't know if you know this, but the only way out of debt is by being profitable, meaning you have to make more income than you're spending today, AKA profit, to pay off your past debts. So the only way to eradicate debt is via taking profit. And so I explain how you can use a profit first system to do that. So waiting too long or going too fast are the most common errors. The solution to both is start slow and small. I suggest someone, and anyone listening or watching today can do this tonight. Call your bank, set up or do it over the internet, set up one account, a savings account, and nickname it profit. That's the first step. It'll probably take 15 minutes over the internet. Once you have that account set up, step 2 is allocate 1% of your income to profit. And the reason we pick 1% is it's so small that if $100 bill comes, $100 deposit comes in for a client, I'm saying take $1. Who cares? It's $1. Put it away, because if you can run your business off $100 from a client, you can run it off 99. But what happens is the mind shift will change, because you'll start seeing that profit account accumulate over time. Maybe it's a few $100s in there. Maybe over more time, it's a few $1,000s. And that's when people say, oh my gosh, if I can do that with 1%, what if I try 2 or 3? And that's when they start building the momentum, start jogging, and then ultimately they're running profit first marathons.
I love it. That's brilliant, man. Brilliant. So,
hey Mike, when
members of our group, Delane Fowler, she asked a question. So how do I stop bank balance accounting? And she said she laughed when she got to the first part of chapter 1. That is so her. So what's your recommendation there?
Yeah. So my recommendation is don't stop bank balance accounting. See, the natural behavior of us, I finally found my phone. The natural behavior of us is to, whoops, now I dropped my phone, is to grab our phone, log into it, see what my balance is. And that's the entrepreneurial way. What we've been told by traditional accounting is never, ever, ever look at your bank accounts, read through these statements, understand the metrics, blah, 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 blah. But if we're naturally still looking at our phone, I'm telling you, that's your established behavior. Continue it. But now, by setting up these accounts on your bank, at your bank, every time you log into your phone, you will see a profit account. You will see your operating expenses. You'll see what you're being paid. Look, because you're pre-allocating money, look at your operating expenses and run your business off that, because it's been pre-allocated. I actually encourage people to log into their phones more frequently now. Check your bank balance every day. See what operating cash you have. And if there's not enough there, you got to change things around. You got to start cutting costs and or increasing margins, selling more. You'll also be reaffirmed every day as you see that profit growing, going, hey, I'm getting stronger and stronger. The one thing you can never do, though, is never borrow, and I'm doing air quotes here, never borrow from your profit account. The second you do that, you start unwinding the system. Once something's allocated to profit, it's profit permanently. When something's allocated to pay you, it's to pay you only. When money's allocated for operating expenses, that's what you have to run your business off of.
Got it. Got it. Chuck, what do you got?
That's partly the answer to this question, but one of our members, Troy Hoffman, asked, and I bet you wish you had $1 for every time they ask this question, are multiple accounts really necessary?
Yes, I would. So I wish I did have $1 for every time you said that. Multiple accounts are absolutely necessary. And here's the resistance I get. But Mike, that takes time. I literally have to call my bank or even go down there and spend 2 hours sitting in the waiting line before I can get these accounts set up. I don't have 2 hours in my life. So I say, well, okay, what's more important? Destroying your business and having no profit, or spending 2 hours getting this set up once and for all. So spend the 2 hours. Other people say, but Mike, the administrative time, now I got to transfer money from here and here and reconcile accounts. It's going to drive me nuts. I don't have the time to do it. We found, because we now have 75,000 plus companies doing this, it's actually faster to reconcile because money's been pre-categorized. So it's actually easier. So once you set up these accounts, it's easier and faster to do. But why you have to do this is you need clarity. Let me give you an example. When Thanksgiving rolls around, tell me if you do this. You pull that golden turkey out of the oven. Do you put it down the table and tell everyone around there, hey, everyone, grab a knife and fork. It's a free-for-all. Everyone, off the serving tray. Go, 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 go. Or do you take the turkey out and carve it up so everyone can get a portion on their plate? I strongly suspect option 2, you carve it and serve it. That's what we need to do with our money. Right now, if you have one account, all the money, it's a big cash turkey sitting there, and all pieces of your business are coming to the party saying, I want a piece, and they're just fighting over that cash turkey, and there's nothing left for you. Instead, we're going to carve it up before anyone eats so everyone gets a portion. That's why it's so critically important.
I love that.
That's perfect. So Derek Hines asked kind of along those same lines. He's saying that do you have any thoughts on corporate structure within the Profit First framework? We're looking at separating out the parts of our company into their own LLCs and the umbrella company leasing services. So, a company for the employees, a company for the building, a company for the equipment. How does that play into how somebody could use the Profit First system still?
Okay, so I may be skirting a little bit of this question, but let me answer as best I can before I do the skirt. The first thing is I design Profit First to work with any type of corporate formation. So anything from a sole proprietorship up to a C Corp and in between, S Corps, LLCs, LLPs, hybrids, and so forth. Profit First works with all of them. We actually have public companies now doing this system. Now they have to make changes to it to comply with Sarbanes-Oxley and so forth, but you can. The second part of the question is if you have multiple business functions, we had one client, they worked in the airplane industry. They actually rented out jets. They also had a mechanics shop that repaired jets. And they also, believe it or not, they transported critical organs, hearts and stuff. Like they actually fly those by private jet.
Cool. That's
cool.
Cool.
Each one of those divisions were kind of packed in together. They didn't know what was making money and what wasn't because all the money was glommed into one account. They set up different LLCs for each one, and they set up different accounts for each one so they could see individually who is truly profitable and not. So I do suggest breaking different types of businesses into different LLCs. Here's where I'm going to skirt a little bit. Talk with your accountant first. Make sure that you're doing what's in your optimal financial tax compliance method, because your accountant may say, you know what, LLCs are not best. You may want to do S Corps in this case, or a C Corp or something. So talk with an accountant for the proper structure to protect you from tax consequences. But from a profit perspective, separate businesses out so they have their own distinct profit categories.
I think that's perfect. Yeah, that makes sense. And I think it's critical that a lot of people know that they should have a financial team and have a good business attorney, a good accountant, a good wealth advisor, a good wealth builder. A lot of different things with that. I think I know the answer to this question based on what you just said. So Mark Eddy says, I loved Profit First. I currently am paying off an SBA loan with about 6 years left. I'm already putting 10% total monthly income in one of my 4 business accounts each month, like a profit tax payment account. I think I want to pay off some of my SBA loan ahead of schedule, but don't want to completely drain this other account. Is there a safe or smart amount of money to keep in that profit account versus paying off some of my loan ahead? I think I know the answer to this.
Yeah. So I'll give you my perspective. But this isn't, I'm not definitive on this, meaning you, again, talk with your accountant first, your financial team. But here's my suggested kind of general rule of thumb. When you have debt, it is usually in your best interest to eradicate that debt as fast as possible. Actually, I am not a proponent for debt in many cases, except for when it it specifically and directly facilitates more profit. Meaning if I put $1 in and I know I'm guaranteed to get $2 back out next month, maybe I'll take on debt for that. But other purposes, no. By the way, some people say, but without debt, without infusing money, you can't grow. Please do not tell Dave Ramsey's $400 million organization that. They've grown to $400 million without taking on an ounce of debt. So you can definitely do that. Here's how you do it, though. When you keep accumulating profit in that profit account, we need to establish this profit habit. It needs to be baked into your business. But if you have debt, when the profit distributions come out, take the majority of it to kind of hammer down your accumulated debt and use a small portion of it to still celebrate. When profit comes out, it's so important to celebrate so we feel that reward. But it's important we eradicate debt quickly too. So we use the profit distributions, the majority of it, to crush debt. The rest reward ourselves. When the debt is finally eradicated, when it's all gone, then that next profit distribution is the sweetest of all because it all goes to you.
Got it. Smart. I like that. Chuck, what do you got?
Let's see here. We got a number of questions which should warm your heart, and basically they're designed to. So, what do I do with that profit once I have it? With regard to investing, which might be a little out of our scope, but always interested in your perspective on that. So, what's a guy do with all that profit?
Yeah, so profit is used to celebrate. Now, I want to give you a perspective that I think we all can at least relate to, probably some people who've actually experienced. If you've ever owned public stock, like I own Ford, this is not a stock tip by any stretch of the imagination, but I own Ford. When you own a public stock, most companies will do quarterly profit distributions. When you get your check, do you sit there and say, oh, I don't deserve this? Or do you say, I should really plow it back or push it back into Ford or whoever you own? I should return the money to them because if they get the money back from me, they'll grow faster. They will maybe hire more people to open a new manufacturing plant. And if all the shareholders did this, we could grow, baby, grow. Has that ever happened in shareholder history? No. When you get that money, you're like, I took on risk here. What if the stock tanks? I don't know what's going to happen to the market tomorrow. I hope the value goes up, but it could go down. This is a reward for me, and we celebrate with it. So guess what? When you own a small business, you've taken on even more risk. They're considered more risky than a public company. When profit comes out, is a reward for you being a risk taker, is never to be plowed back, pushed back, reinvested into the business. Those are just soft terms for saying it's not profit. It's in another expense. I just try to make myself feel good about it. So when the money comes out, it is for you. Now, what do you do with it? I use it for celebratory purposes, meaning do I want to buy something, a vacation, or maybe it's a small amount. Maybe I'm going out for an amazing lunch or dinner, but over time, maybe it grows. I literally just bought a vintage arcade game system for our house with our last quarterly profit distribution. But it doesn't have to be stuff. It could be for your retirement. Maybe you celebrate through giving yourself future security. Maybe it's to pay for your children's education. Maybe it's a once-in-a-lifetime experience. You define it. The golden rule is the money never goes back into the business. It's for you personally.
It's a personal decision, in other words. That's the biggest point take home for that.
Yeah.
One of the questions that comes along with that is, so Karen Craven says, we've all heard the saying, you need to spend money to make money. And you just touched on that, Mike. So she said, what are your thoughts on this? And what are the steps that you take to determine what that looks like?
All right. So my hair is starting to thin on the top. And every time I hear that, I want to pull out the remaining hair. Oh my God. Like whoever is the jerk who said it takes money to make money, I want to wring his or her neck. Like, why? Because so sadly, we believe it. Why? Gotcha. It doesn't take money to make money. It takes innovative thinking to make money. It takes out of the boxing. It takes challenging the industry. It takes offering something that's so compelling to our customers, they throw money at us to make money. It doesn't take money to make money. It's the easiest path is to spend money. If we have money, it's so easy to spend. But sadly, when we have money, we spend it arbitrarily. We're not calculated. We don't say, well, if I run those Facebook ads, I am guaranteed to make a 10 times return. We say, if I run Facebook ads, I hope I'll make a return. And we blow some money here and it doesn't work. We blow money elsewhere. Money allows us to follow the easiest, softest path. It's actually the lack of money that facilitates the most money, because then you have to think innovatively. You think, how do I deliver the most value to my client without spending money? What can I do that's so outside the box they want to spend more with me? You start to think at a higher level. So I just challenge that notion, that adage. It doesn't take money to make money. Profit is not last. Profit comes first. It takes innovation to make money. That's my beliefs.
Got it. And that totally makes sense. We have a few more questions here. I know your time is limited here. I think we'll get at least one, maybe two more in here. And I think this is a good one. This is from Karina. She says that I talked to my bank yesterday, and I know a couple of people asked about this. You probably know what's coming. Remaining anonymous, which bank it is.
No, you're right. Okay, here we go. I know what's going on.
All business checking accounts have minimums.
A fee. Yeah.
That I can't go down to zero. Also, if I move my money more than 6 times a month, I have to fill out a federal form due to new banking laws. So my question is, how do I get started with this framework? Easy to say, get a new bank, but we all know how difficult that really can be. You've got so many auto debit and auto credit things. So what is your suggestion on that?
Yeah. So first of all, getting a new bank is not necessarily difficult. So we'll talk about that in a second. But first of all, I want you to realize something about your current bank. They are a business. You are a client of that business. Okay. So let's be clear. This is a client-vendor relationship, right? They're in the business of storing money. And when they store your money, they take your money, they actually give it to other people in hopes those people give them that money back plus interest. That's how they earn their money. And when I say hope, I mean, it's a calculated process. They do everything they can to assure the collection of money. The thing is, they are a vendor of yours. Could you imagine going to a vendor that cleans your office and they say, sorry, we won't clean windows. You're like, but I want my windows clean. They say, sorry, they're just going to be dirty forever because that's how we roll. And then what would you do? You'd probably say, well, clean my freaking windows or I'm going to find a new cleaning company, right? If a bank won't do what you ask them to do, how interested are they in your business? Just ponder on that, right? Just ponder on that. The second thing is there's countless banks out there that don't have fee structures. They make their monies by doing lending and other things. They don't make their money off these individual small transactions. I have found in most cases, it's smaller banks, regional banks, and federal credit unions or just general credit unions that are far superior. Here's the irony. So we work with the local credit union. They're amazing. They cater to us. They actually, when I walk into the branch, they know who I am. And they go out of their way to cater to me. The experience has been extraordinary. Fees for a zero balance? No fees. I do 70 transfers, not 70, but I can do 17 transfers in a month. There's no fees. They've actually told me the accounts to set up. They said, Mike, if this account's a checking account, we can do more transactions. If it's a savings account, that's where there's the federal 6 transfer law. They say these accounts should be savings, like my profit account, because I put money in there. There's no transaction account for that. I pull money out only once a quarter. So they said, make that a savings account. In fact, there's an interest-bearing account where you can use it that kind of locks the money in, but you get higher interest. And I said, that's great. They've actually coached me to the optimal ones to maximize my interest return. So just to recap, if a bank is not willing, if the bank says, here's the rules, live by it or die, does that bank really want your business? That makes me uncomfortable. I challenge that. And second, finding a new bank and setting up is not hard. It's not cumbersome. Yes, it takes effort, but the effort will pay for itself 1,000-fold because you'll guarantee profit for your business. Don't circumvent this system of, basically what I'm hearing is I am not willing to change my bank. And as a result, I'm not going to do the profit first system. Profit is not a concern of mine. No, profit it's your lifeblood. It has to be that important. Make the effort to do what's so critically important for your business. Profit.
I can tell how passionate you are. Not only
a little bit jacked up there. It's about
that's right. Mike, tone down on the Red Bulls. No, I'm just kidding.
Right. Seltzer too.
Yeah, seltzer. Yeah, that seltzer's all jacked up.
I'm crashing it.
Yeah. One last question, and we're going to wrap this up and find out about how we can better have people utilize your system, utilize your services, and read your next book, Clockwork, which I know is coming out on shelves or is going to be available soon on Amazon.
August 21st, baby, 2018.
Awesome. So last one was Christopher Taylor says, he said, I read your book, analyzed my numbers, and I came up with where I am and the targets I want. What's the easiest way to just get started once my accounts are open? So I get the principle, but would love your input on getting started. So how can people get started with Profit First? And in addition to that, if in fact that is the case, if they needed help, if they needed assistance, what do you have available, Mike, to help them out and get them going?
So Christopher, to get started, it's real simple. Since you did the analysis, you know where you are and where you want to be. Do the 1% increment, meaning look at where you've been historically for your profit. Maybe you've never had a profit before, which is normal. Let's move that up to 1%. So go from 0% to 1%. Maybe you're paying yourself the equivalent of 20% of your top line. Maybe your business makes 200,000, you're paying yourself 40,000. Let's move that from 20% to 21%. So now you're paying yourself a little bit more. Maybe you never allocated taxes, bump that by 1%. And those 1%, 1%, 1% now has to come out of OpEx. So the OpEx gets compressed by 3%. Do that once a quarter and you'll move toward here. Instead of doing this, instant shift where we jam it into first and second gear, we're slowly releasing the clutch and getting the business up and running incrementally. That's the key. And Frank, thanks for asking. If you want to learn more about me and my organization, ironically, my nickname in high school was Mike Motorbike. You mentioned that earlier.
Yes.
My full name is Mike Michalowicz. My website's MikeMichalowicz.com. That's hard to find and spell. But if you go to Mike Motorbike, my nickname.com, you'll find me. All my books are there. You can get downloads and so forth. The book we're talking about is Profit First. It's on Amazon, Barnes & Noble's, Clockwork, my brand new book about business efficiency, making your business run on automatic. Amazon, Barnes & Noble is your favorite bookstore. And if you want to find out one last link about Profit First professionals, we have accountants and bookkeepers certified in the Profit First method. Go to profitfirstprofessionals.com and we'll gladly introduce you to someone that can help you out.
Mike, that's awesome. I also believe that I did see in some of the literature that I did research on you about here, there is also an 800 number that is, tell me if it's correct, 888-244-2843. Yep. That is a number that they can also reach out to your team and learn more about that system. Is that correct? Yeah,
it rings in right here. We're a small business. We have 10 employees here, but dial that number, like you said, 888-244-2843. That calls our offices. We have staff here during business hours, 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, Eastern time, and we'll gladly make an introduction to whoever you need. Or listen, if you have a question, we're here to answer your questions too.
Well, Motor Mike, I can tell you this. I learned a lot here today. It's a pleasure. Chuck, anything else to add, my friend?
No, it's all great information. And actually, for those of you who don't really like to sit and read a book, I did Profit First on the audio book. Oh, cool. And Mike, you are a very entertaining author. It's a great experience. If people weren't crying during the piggyback portion of the audio book, they need help.
Yeah. Because I started crying. So yeah. No, thank you. Thank you for listening to it and reading it. And thanks to both you gentlemen for having me on.